All right, if I think everybody's here, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 13, 14, is that right? 13, right? We're missing, oh, you're here. The other Connor. No.
You're all here. Hello.
Dylan?
Dylan's not here.
Yeah, that's what it is. All right. All right, well, he'll probably be here. Doesn't strike me as a quitter. All right, so everybody should have stuff for assignment 2, right? What was the assignment?
Try to replicate an image from the magazine that you're interested in.
Yep, so we're gonna take our favorite stuff. And by the way, favorite isn't necessary. I chose favorite on purpose because when you start looking at what your favorite work is, you're also kind of defining your own niche, right? When there's a reason it's your favorite, I guess is the easy way to say that. The reason that it's your favorite is because of something. It's the color, or it's the aesthetic, or it's the close-up, or it's the wide out, or any of those things will determine why you are going to shoot the way you shoot. Obviously, in every other art, if you're a musician, you have musical influences, right? If you're a painter, you have artistic influences, and in photography is no different, right? So let's start, let's jump right into it. I did see a couple of people that put stuff up. The latest one I think was branded, right?
Probably.
Yeah, let's start with yours.
Me, because I was just looking and mine wasn't up.
Oh yeah?
I just put it up again. Because, I don't know, I'm bad at it. But,
I can, I'm trying to,
now that
oh, the dinosaur of unforgiveness. We need to start singing the theme of Jeopardy in unison whenever we come in. Ooh, a joint.
Yep.
You were going for the lead lines on this one, weren't you?
Not so much.
All right, this is the one that I saw last. So let's start here. We'll talk about your addiction later.
Addiction, habit, whatever you want to call
Are
it.
you on the pot? All right. Brandon, talk about this one.
Oh, I don't know. I was on Hannaford and I looked through some magazine that had a bunch of scenery and shit from made, and I was like, I'm gonna do something like that. So I went to where my pops grew up, some Byron. I don't know, it was pretty to me. People were jumping off that bridge too. It was pretty entertaining.
Wow, that looks like a dangerous one to jump
Yeah,
on.
the water's only like 5 feet.
Yeah.
But I've jumped off it. I'm fat as hell, so I can survive.
Maybe when it's in full, melt season or something, when there's runoff, right? Then maybe that's a better.
Yeah, and then you just get, have a family instead.
Yeah, lots of risks in jumping on. So, well, what was the actual image? Talk about the original image. Is that one up here, by the way?
Which one? The one I took wide?
The original one.
Oh, were you at my assignment one?
The magazine from which you got.
Oh, no, I didn't. Could we have to put that up? I just browsed the magazine. I don't try to replicate anything. I was just like, yeah, so much to see and really try to take one like what they had.
All right. Describe it then.
Well, they had ones with like flowers and stuff, and like some from like Acadia National Park,
Yeah.
just different spots in Maine. But I was, like, I think there was one with a lake or something. I was like, oh, I'm gonna do something with water.
All right. So water was what?
Essentially, yeah, I wanted to.
Okay. So that's good. It's good that you can pull out an element specific to the shot that was enthusiastic, for your liking. Do you recall who shot it?
I have no idea.
Yeah. What was the name of the publication?
I had no idea. Because I think it was one of these, you can go to that magazine thing in Hannaford, and it has like a bunch of stuff from Maine.
Yeah.
So maybe it has Maine in the title, I don't know, I just looked through it.
Yeah. Well, all right. Good enough. We're going to try to get very specific. The more specific you can get in this class, even if it's paying attention to publications and things like that, the better off we're going to be at fine-tuning our niche, right? So in the future, just keep that in mind. So water was the compelling element.
Yeah.
Does anybody have any thoughts on this photo? off the cuff? What about how it's divided?
The bridge.
Yeah, it's divided by some lines in there. It's divided by two sets of lines, right? Whether intentional or not, we've got this set of lines and we've got this set of lines, right? When we get into nature photography and things like that, we'll immediately and profoundly absorb the idea that the water is very emotive. And if it's tracing off in a certain direction, like a road, you know, like a winding road, it does the exact same thing. And it forces your eyes up into the shot. So I'm willing to bet that most of us, when we first looked at the shot, we landed on the bridge, not because it has lead lines, because it's actually the lightest color thing in the shot. Our eyes go to very light sources first. But then we probably dropped down to the water, which then kind of fed our eyes back up this way. So this is the cycle right here. Does anybody recall how their eyes laid on that picture first and where they went? And is any of that correct for you?
Mm-hmm.
Probably?
I went kind of towards the sky and then the bridge. But
Yeah, very light up here as well. Yep. Very, very important to remember where your eyes land on the image first. If you can, I know it's hard to like think about thinking and at the same time recording that thought. It's like meta thought, right? But at the same time, do it, right? Get into that habit. Good photographers do that. All right, good photographers know how to force the eyes around the shot. All right. Is this a self-portrait, Shannon?
No, that's my roommate.
Okay. It's kind of hard to tell with the fence.
Yep.
So talk about that shot. What was the inspiration for it?
I'm not much of a magazine person either. I kind of talked about it in there, but in fashion magazines, you know, like Vogue and stuff, I like not so much like the fashion part, but I like how they kind of mix their scenery with like the clash of like what they're wearing. So kind of like how the scenery they use like complements what I wasn't going for like a fashion thing here, but I drove by that fence on my way home one day, and I really wanted to do it at night because I thought that'd be cool because it's kind of like a creepy place, but my roommates were busy.
Where is that?
It's like
Is that in Old Town?
it's in Old Town, yeah. It's
Yeah.
near. It's actually right near the paper plant. Like
Yeah, I think I know where that's
it's
at.
like if you're driving, and it's I actually love it for taking pictures because there's no one around, and it's just fence after fence of like this dismal kind of abandoned parking lot. It's
Yeah.
kind of awesome.
Yeah, yeah, and there's another place that if you like that kind of stuff, don't go there alone, but like, it's on the way to Vizi,
Oh,
and there's this like rusted out truck on the side. It's right there on the side of the road.
that's awesome.
It actually ended up, and the reason that it stuck out in my mind, because it was some local band had taken their picture in front of this truck. I was like riding the bus one day, I was like, I know that truck.
Yeah, I'm kind of into like creepy, like dark fine art kind of stuff, and Old Town has a lot of like abandoned places. Old Town creeps me out a little bit. I live there, but anyway. And I'm new to it, so driving through there was like, that's a sweet building, that's really cool, but yeah, she was the only one home, and I was like, I need you to do this for me. Yeah, I like the fence.
Good, and so you're interested in contrasting, not necessarily, you're interested in contrasting themes.
Yeah, like I
Right.
liked it's a creepier place at night, but I liked kind of the dismal setting and then throwing her in there. I thought that was cool.
Yeah.
It's like she doesn't belong there, clearly, you
Yeah.
know.
Sure. What do we think about this as a class? Talk about where things are in this image.
What do you mean?
Any of it, just look at it and just start talking. Anybody?
A lot of horizontal lines.
A lot of horizontal, yep, there are. There's first of all, the horizon, the fence, the other fence, the fence behind the fence, the parking lot, the grass, parking lot, the grass, parking lot, the grass. Yeah, lot of horizontal lines in there. What else?
I was actually looking like the other day to find a magazine that I liked, because like I don't like magazines either. But I was looking through Vogue, and this is like when I was scrolling through all the homeworks, like I was actually laughing because I was like, wow, that actually looks so much like something that would be in Vogue. Obviously, probably like couture or something.
Right,
but
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it was very. I thought it was good.
Talk about the subject. Well, what is the subject? let's talk about that. What's the most important thing in that image?
I mean, I see the setting, that's me. I wasn't too worried about her. Like, when I took her picture, I'm like, this isn't focused on you. Like, don't worry what you look like so much. I just liked where it was, you know?
Yeah.
That's just me. Obviously, if someone else looks at it, they're gonna look at her, I think.
Yeah. So is that what everybody thinks? It might not be, is it?
I think the fence is kind of more important in a way.
It stands out, doesn't it? Her hands are on it,
Mhm.
right? It's in between the camera and the other subject, right? What is she doing? She's looking away. Hands up, standing there, right?
Yeah, I like how she's like more off to the side and not centered, and there's more of the picture in like where she's looking
Yeah.
than her.
Yeah,
I thought
and
that was cool.
that's not only is it a good thing to catch, it's also a good thing that, it's also an interesting point to know that if she would have framed her this way, it would have made the viewers uncomfortable. Right now, it's pretty comfortable because there's some, you see what she's looking, you see where she's looking, and then you see where she's looking, right? There are two different kinds of definitions for that word, where, right? You see where, which direction, but then you see the actual stuff. But if we remove that, if we put her here, or if we have her looking the other way, then it's very kind of like off-putting, right? Who wants to make their viewers uncomfortable? Yeah, we've got a few. That's one of the ways to do it. There's nothing wrong with that. That's, in fact, that is fuel for some of the most successful images in magazines and stuff like that. If you're trying to do an ad for Coke and Pepsi, you're going to look toward the one that you want the most, and that subliminally is going to sell Coke or whichever one that is happens to be in the direction she's looking at, because the viewer is uncomfortable for a reason they don't even know. Right? So it's good to catch that. What else have we got? Trevor. I know where that's at too. It's not too far from where hers was, probably.
Right in Old Town, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I was thinking about using the train too, so.
Yeah. Talk about this one.
Well, like I said, I couldn't really pursue my first goal that I had because it's very specific with the events and what's going on. And another thing I really like is like the like up home we have a lot of abandoned places and things like that I can explore, but I haven't really found anything up here yet.
Yeah.
And I really like the urban exploration thing.
Well, now you got a partner. You guys are into the same kind of stuff. Right?
Like with like the overgrown like buildings that have been abandoned for a while, and just things like that are really cool to me. So like, I guess I don't really read magazines, but there's a blog that I follow on Tumblr, and it's just like abandoned buildings and places and stuff like that. And so that was the closest I could find in such short notice, but I really like the exploration of these places.
Yeah. So what was this based from?
It wasn't based off a specific photo, but more or less the idea of the photos that I enjoy to look at and stuff like that. So like, again, like abandoned places, like overgrown factories, buildings that aren't used anymore.
Okay. And so let's talk about it. Let's talk about what, everybody record the path that your eyes take on this image, okay? Just look naturally at it, and where do your eyes start and where do they stop?
They start at the left side of the tracks, and then they always seem to stop on that red car way at the end.
Anybody else agree with that? Yeah. It makes a lot of sense for several reasons. First, this is a prime example of what, there's a phrase in photography called lead lines. And these two words are put together to, obviously they're lines within the photograph, and they literally lead your eyes in a certain direction. Something always, well, I can't say always, you can't really use the word always in art, can you? Because there's always somebody who's going to be like, but this one time. So I'm using always in the general sense, please don't, semantic me to death with that. But it's always good to put something different at the end of those lead lines. All right? Your subject should never be the lead lines. That's the rule. Break it responsibly when you know that rule, of course, as the amazing artistes that you all shall become. But for now, the rule is put something interesting at the end of your lead lines. And in this case, what he put was a red car. Totally out of place. Everything else is a skeleton of a car. And then you're like, boom! There's nothing even red that's in the shot anywhere. It's like, right? And it might not have been the red car. It might have been the yellow car here. It might have been anything else other than one of these. But he happened to have that one, right? At the end of the babbling brook, there's a deer nestling his nose in the brush. Whatever, right? At the end of the lead lines, put something important. It's a very successful picture for that reason. Anybody have any other comments? Successful? Yes? No? Yes?
Yeah.
I would think so. All right, Jane.
Alright, so that like doesn't do it justice, this projector, but this was in Old Town, and I was recreating a National Geographic, because obviously, like, if I was like looking at my Instagrams and I was like, I don't really know like what I really enjoy, and it's like literally all sunsets. It's actually, I feel bad for my followers, honestly. And well, because I work at a baseball stadium at home, and like it overlooks like the west side of my city, and we have awesome sunsets, so I like have this thing for it. So anyway, I was in Old Town last night. Not last night, I was actually like, it was like, yeah, well, I guess it was last night. And I saw it, and I hadn't gotten a shot yet, and I was so upset, and I was like, my roommates have been busy, and I was like, oh, I don't know what to do, and I saw this, and I was like, okay, so I grabbed it while I could, but yeah, the colors are actually a lot more like, they were a lot stronger on my computer, but.
So you're motivated by the colors.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Well, let's talk about the colors then. Anybody?
Orange.
Orange?
It's like the most dominant color.
There are some,
Like,
yeah.
most of people,
Yeah. So the orange contrasts with what colors?
the blue.
Yep.
Sorry, yeah.
Most obviously the blue. It probably also contrasts with the dark at the bottom of the frame, because it is the brighter of all of the colors on that histogram. Any of the high points on the right side of the histogram would be describing these lighter segments here. From here, all these cirrus clouds here, these wispy up to here. And on the left side of the histogram, where is that then? Where is that histogram talking about? The dark, right? Well, I guess take an image, and we have a histogram. All right? This is what the histogram looks like that I showed you guys on my camera. This is the dark regions. This is the middle. And this is the light regions. All right? And so the brighter the image, the more weighted toward the right it's going to be. The darker the image, the more flow you're going to have over here, right? Does everybody get that concept? We're going to be talking about histograms a lot in here. So if you're thinking, I'm not going to pay attention because this is like, I don't get it, just listen and absorb. We will be talking about it. You're not expected to like give me the histogram 101 by the end of this, but we're going to be, a histogram is very important when we're talking about how to program into our brains what we want to shoot, right? So, in any case, would this image be a balanced image?
No.
Why not?
I think you're losing some detail in the shadows.
No, I'm not saying, you are losing detail. I guess I'm specifically talking about the light, only the light. Yeah, not detail, not contrast, just the light.
I think it's balanced visually because we're more focused on the sunset than the line of houses.
Yeah.
So it's good that it's dark, and because really at that point of the day it's getting dark down there.
Yep.
So
Well, I'm leading up to something, and maybe I should just come out with it. This image, I can download it and then put it through my software and then look at the histogram, or I can take a guess. And my guess is that this image would look like this. It would have a spike here, and then it would come up and a spike there. And the bulk of the image would be right here. This is the bulk of your visual. Actually, it'll probably come up right about here. Okay. Because it's got a lot of light here, a lot of light right around here, midtones here, and a lot of dark here. So you'll have a big chunk of dark here. It's going to be somewhere around here for the midtones, and then it's going to have a spike of light, right? A perfect way to balance this out a little bit better. Anybody have any ideas on what that might be? It's not necessarily intuitive. We might, if nobody gets it, I don't expect everybody to know. You want to take a shot? A good way to balance that would be to use, actually a filter. Yep. What we would do to make this a little bit more balanced, and by the way, I'm not saying this is what makes it better, okay? I'm just saying this is what makes it a better exposed shot. What, this loss in detail here that Thomas was talking about, and it keeps that dramatic fill that Mal was talking about, is we would lower the exposure on the camera, meaning we would try and overexpose it a little bit, because we want to burn that light portion into the sensor a little bit longer. Do you remember what this was set on, or did you have your camera on auto?
It was literally taken from my phone,
Oh, okay.
so
it's probably
that's why
auto.
it kind of is lacking.
Yeah. It's probably, I'm thinking shot, because you have some blown out stuff here, I would think maybe like a 2/50th of a second, pointed basically into the sun, right? Because that's a lot of light coming from the sun. It might not look like a lot of light, but what is light is really, really light, right? So this part here. And again, it did some good compensating for that, and it got a good color range here, and the tonality at the bottom here is good. But what we could do with our cameras, and I'll show you guys how to do this as time goes on, is to open up your shutter for a little bit longer, or keep the shutter the same and open up the aperture a little bit. You know, step it down to maybe a 2.8. I don't know, maybe this was shot at a 3.5 or something. Or you can increase the sensitivity to light in the ISO. Any of those three factors that you increase the sensitivity to light will expose this, overexpose it, but when you put a filter on there, like a neutral density filter, and again we'll talk about those, it'll give you all the good parts about that photo. Right? But good. It's got great lead lines here. You've got some juxtaposed angles coming in with the clouds. Your eyes are okay floating around that image, right? It's not an uncomfortable thing to look at, right? Good. Riley, tell me about this one.
Well, I don't really read magazines, but when I do look at magazines, it's like National Geographic or like something naturey, and I was like, I want to get like a landscape, and at first I was like, I should get a sunrise or a sunset, and then like it came around, and I was just like, there's no way I can do that.
Yeah.
It was like, I had class right after that, so I could get an actual sunset.
Yeah.
So I just went out and I went down by the steam plant, and I tried to get really close to the water and took that picture.
It looks like you're actually in the water.
Yeah, I got it.
You're on a dock or something? No?
Just the rocks.
Yeah. Yeah, no, a lot of times when we look at pictures, we don't realize how they were shot, right? But if you think about it, he probably did have to kind of get scarily close to the water and risk, soaking down the Nikon, the Nikes, right? So you tapped into something that I already had set out for us to talk about. And I had listed some stuff in the resources, so let's go ahead and talk about that. He mentioned that he didn't have time to get the shot he wanted. Right. He's got good, let me first say, before I get into that, he's got a pretty good, he's got 1/3 at the bottom, and he's got 2/3 open, which is a very good thing for composition. You're gonna wanna divide your shot into thirds. He's got a horizontal division here, and he's got a vertical division here, with this portion taken and the 2/3 here open, right? So compositionally, that follows the rules. But not having the time to take a shot is only acceptable when there's a newsworthy event that's happening right then, right? If you want a sunrise or a sunset shot, when do you get that shot?
At that time.
At that time. That's it. You make that time, right? As a photographer who has camped out for days waiting to get a couple or maybe a handful of shots, you know, that kind of mentality really sets in with you. It really burns into you that you're going to come away with even if it isn't great stuff, it's the stuff you want, right? I came out here, I'm going to get the shot I want. It's not about your personal time. The sun doesn't go on your clock, right? You have to go on the natural time around you. So getting the shot you want, therefore, makes it an effort game. And I'm not coming down on you. I don't want it to seem like that, but this is a great learning opportunity. And I did mention that in the resources. I wanted to talk about that today. So when does your shot happen? When you have the picture in your mind of what you want to capture to signify or to represent the scene, when does it take place? That's a very important question to ask yourselves as photographers, right? When could it take place to make it the most dramatic shot, or to make it the most representative shot of whatever you're working on, right? Very important question to ask. If it's indoors, there's a whole different section of questions. You know what I mean? Like, then how do we light it the way we want it, right? Then you're no longer determined or bound by natural light. Now you're talking about a whole different thing. Where am I going to set my flash guns? Am I going to hold one over here? Am I going to bounce it off the ceiling to fill the light behind the subject? Am I going to set up a 3-point lighting system with a bounce car up here, or to make my subject look into the light or look away from the light? What makes it more dramatic, right? Essentially, that bigger question is, where is the light going to come from, and what is going to make it look good, right? But that is very aesthetically pleasing, isn't it? It's divided well. It's got good subject matter. It's all in the natural world. Okay, this came out of the magazine. Whose is this? Kaylee. All right. And this is yours? That one works, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Interesting. Even got a truck in there. That's intense.
For a black truck. But yeah, I was looking through Down
It's
East.
out there for $40.
There's a lot of lighthouses and
Mhm.
boats and stuff like that, so I went with what I thought would be closest, easiest to find in Bangor, and I was able to find this steeple.
Is that Hammond Street? State, maybe?
It's right here in Bangor Police Department, downhill a little bit. So I was sort of just going for natural light and similar angle, sort of uphill.
Yep.
Going downhill.
It's not just uphill. It's
Yeah,
down the road,
That's kind of
right?
driving, yeah.
You got the down the road shot. The traffic is heading away from you. And that was well planned, right? So what did she pay attention to get this shot? She's even got some light posts in there. Boom, boom, boom. Are there other red brick buildings in the other shot? There's a red one. What is that? Is it a barn or something? A little shop or something probably? What magazine was that from? Down East? Okay. What do we think about that? It's pretty cool, huh? On the left of the shot, she even has trees, right? Upper left.
I was getting a lot of looks by people driving by us.
Is she a terrorist? Plotting on our church. What else can we say about it? Where's the church in the shot? Slightly to the left. Not completely to 1/3 to the left, right? But slightly maybe, if the 50% line is right in the middle, she's probably at like a 40, right? 35 maybe. Go ahead.
I'm saying it's bright.
It is bright, yeah, but who knows? You know, maybe there were a lot of like white clouds behind the thing at the time. Do you remember what the overcast was like?
It was like, it was 5 o'clock, so it was kind of before sunset, a little cloudy.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You guys are gonna learn to start looking at photos and saying, ooh, you know, that's really diffuse light. Clouds are notorious for making no shadows, and sometimes that's a good thing, and sometimes that's a bad thing. She had what looks like behind the church, lots of diffuse light, because you can't really see any end patterns in the outskirts of the clouds, maybe a couple, right? It could also be the projector, but we'll just go with what we see for now. But then she's got some determined hardline shadows right here behind the truck. Everybody see these? So that means there's a patch of open clouds over here that are coming, that's forcing light through, right? So when we look at pictures, even from magazines, even from the perspective of presumably a professional photographer who submitted this to a magazine, right? You know, his sun is very non-diffuse. Let's look at the clouds in here now. We have a little bit of detail in the clouds. This individual obviously probably did some of the same things you did, sat around and waited for the right moment. They might have, I mean, basically your sun is coming from this side, where their sun is coming from this side, painting their subject, which is obviously the church, right? It's the most pronounced image, portion of the image, in the light that they want. What time do you think that is? At the top of the tree is here. What time do you think that is? Pretty high in the sky.
11 or 1-ish.
Or, yeah, or on the other side, 3 maybe, right? Yeah, so anywhere between 10 to 11 or like 1 to 3, right? It's a pretty high sun. Kind of a hard sun. There's no golden reflected from that church, is there? And it's a white. So that afternoon golden hour, that 4 to 6 p.m., maybe even to 9, depending on when the sun sets in your region of the world, will give you a more like, it'll baste this thing like a turkey, cook it in an oven, give it that gold. But there's none of that, right? So this individual shot that in midday, we'll say midday. Yours was later afternoon. Very diffuse, right? You got no real hard shadows on the church, right? So these are things to look for when we next look in our magazines and on our online favorite places. We're going to start seeing, okay, that's diffuse light, that's hard light. How many clouds? How few clouds?
The shadows are much sharper in the first image too, I just noticed.
Yep. That there's no doubt that there's some nice hard lines in that. You can even see, as far as it is away, you can even see the shadow from the wire going from pole to pole, right? You would never get that shadow in this shot. Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Just depends on what you want out of that shot, right? That's all that matters. What do you want out of that shot? Good. All right, the bog of eternal sadness. Am I going back too far for you guys? You guys seen that movie?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. The rest of you are like,
Great.
no. It was the cheapest awesome movie ever. Okay, Connor.
Alright, well, initially, there's a beaver dam back there, and I was trying to find a beaver, which did not work out. I saw him for like 10 seconds as I showed up, didn't have my camera out, and then I didn't see him again for like half an hour. So that was my initial plan. I don't really read any magazines, but I guess as some of the people are doing, I kind of own National Geographic just because I used to browse through it when I was little and my parents had it.
Yeah.
So I was just kind of like perched on a stump out there trying to find a beaver, which wasn't really forthcoming. And I saw that tree, and I kind of liked how it split the sky in a way. It was just kind of standing by itself, it looked like, and to the left of the woods and to the right was just open sky. I guess it just kind of struck me, so. took a picture.
Yep. What did the sky look like when you took it?
I think it was fairly blue, so I guess that's your side of the
Well, the darkest parts of your shot, which should be here and in the shadows here, are very light still. So that is why you can't get any definition out here. But that's a beast we'll beat down when we get to it. But what do we think? I mean, it's got a feel to it. Can anybody point out what the subject matter might be?
I guess the water, because it takes up most of the shot.
The tree.
The tree is pretty outstanding in that shot. I mean, it does, right? Yeah. It's outstanding in the lake.
I like how many different greens there are.
Yeah, like that just kind of surrounds the picture too.
So the tonal range is another thing. Hey. So what could we do to this shot to make it more Nat Geo-y? If we could go out there any time of day and put any subject matter in it, sky's the limit, what would some of you guys do to this shot if you were Connor?
So like not change the position.
Right, yeah. Try for this, not necessarily, well, you can do so much as to change landscape to portrait and maybe change angle, but I don't want you to move your feet.
Okay.
How's that sound? Anybody have any thoughts?
We're going at later time in the day.
Anytime, yeah, anytime you
An hour
want.
later.
Later? What would that provide you?
Darker greens, maybe more wildlife or something. I was trying to get an animal in there, but
Okay, an animal.
I do more water, I think, like.
Yeah.
a little bit. I don't know if there is more water
There was
actually.
a little bit, but there was also like a row of cars, which I was trying to avoid. Kind of attractive to the shot. So I was kind of like angling it, that's why it's kind of tilted on.
Yeah.
And I was using my phone, so.
All right, how about this back splash of trees back here? Has anybody even seen these? Because these are hard to catch if you're not looking for them.
They are.
Yeah, they kind of hide back there. Even though they're in plain sight, they kind of hide. On your portraiture, on your landscapes, you're going to start finding the importance in filling your frame with nothing but important stuff. And if it's barely seen or if it's distracting, crop it out or get rid of it in some way. Go back and reshoot the shot if you have to. Get that distracting stuff out of there. Fill the frame with nothing but good stuff. Right? And one of the things that makes documentary work compelling to other people is putting people in an image. You have something to relate to that. Anybody in here interested in hiking and camping and fishing and sporting and all that stuff? We can intimately relate to that scene because all of us in that particular group have seen a shot about like this at some point in our trails, right? But think about what would make that not just appealing to the hikers in the group, right? But maybe appeal to the corporate lawyers in the group, or the surfers, or the whomever, right? You just put a human element in an otherwise backdrop shot by whatever kind of horizon, and it will immediately become a little bit more relatable, right? Pretty cool, a little bit more intimate here. Nice. So this was the magazine.
Yeah, I ended up just like looking at my Pinterest, like at the photos.
Yep.
that I like and that I like, so, because I don't really like read magazines a lot.
It's hard not to look at that shot, isn't it?
Yeah.
The first thing you do here is, what are your eyes? Your eyes don't start here, right? This is a little bit confusing at first, but you kind of like start here and like it's a bench, okay, and then you just digest a little bit more, and then it's more and more centrifugal, you know, kind of like spirals you in, right? So is that what you felt with that as well?
Yeah, that's what I like.
All right. And let's relate it to yours. There are some circular elements, right?
Yeah.
So you probably, at least on a subconscious level, kept that with you
Yeah.
when taking this shot. What else?
Yeah, I liked the idea of a bench, but I wasn't sure if I was gonna get that going. How I was more like looking for like the circular kind of thing, but then I ended up with a bench. They don't have any benches like that on our campus.
Yeah.
But, so I kind of went for like, I went for the close-up intimate shot, and I shot it straight on, because like, when it's the circular, it's like a straight-on shot, so I did that as well.
Yep. You also got the side of the bench in prominence, right?
Mm-hmm.
You also got, you know, the boards themselves. It could have been any bench in the world. It could have been a concrete bench. It could have been a bench with iron bars and frilly flowers, but it had wooden posts just like this, all right? So nice square items, right? It's got the bolts in it, just like the other one does. So there's a lot of relatable content. Let's talk about how it's composed. How is it divided? The shot is clearly divided by the lines in it, right? She could have taken her camera and looked just here and cut off the edge of those things, and we wouldn't even know what this is, right? It could be a fence, could be some kind of an animal container, something to keep cows in or something, right? But she's got this one here. Even if we didn't relate the idea that she's influenced by a bench on the shot, she still has something that obviously depicts a bench. Okay? There's the other little, well, among many, one of the many funky little tricks that we'll learn in here is to look for things in threes. Okay? There's not just the frame that you take. When you look through your camera, you're looking at something that your sensor is going to absorb. The light from the sun bounces off of the thing that you're looking at and burns itself onto that sensor. You're looking at precisely what that sensor is going to look at when you trip that shutter. That itself is a frame. But within that, it's also a good idea to frame other things, which is what she has similarly done here. The distance between the bottom edge here, the top edge here, and of course the sides of the edges here is about, approximately the same, right? She has framed that in a way. I'm not sure if that was your intention, but she framed within that frame. And that's something that will add a lot of success to your portfolio when you start looking at things in terms of framing. And that's probably the most significant similarity between this image and this image. Just because it's a circle does not mean it's not a frame. Because the photographer on this shot framed everything inside, everything important, right, inside this circle. Everybody see that? So whether you knew you were doing that or not, that aesthetically is the most similar item. The notion of framing that within a frame is the thing that you share in common with this other image. Who picked that up? Somebody had to pick that up. Got one? Huh. That's cool. All right, so we went for the film noir look. Whose is this?
It's mine.
Okay. All right, which one's which?
I think it's the bottom one. So they're all the way over.
Okay.
And it's, well,
I don't read a lot of magazines, but I used to when I was little. Especially like dentist. Like when I had dentist appointment, they always had like this garden and home magazines. So I'm like, I like things that are pretty much you do have something that draws your attention to, and the rest is blurry behind.
Yeah.
So I try to imitate the same lighting.
Okay, so the influence from this picture was A, the lighting, B, selective focus, and if I might go out on a limb here, C, the black and white.
Yeah, I try imitating all of it.
Yeah, no, there are a lot of elements in both, so that's good that you pick up on those. Let's first digest this one here, everybody. Let's look at and record where your eyes go around that frame. Okay, it starts where? I mean, obviously we start at the cup. The cup, not just the cup, but it's probably what? Hot cocoa, tea, coffee, something we all have had. And then it starts giving you these other clues, because we've got a coffee pot, we've got something. There's like coffee percolating in all of those, probably, right? It seems like that's just a coffee lover's nightmare that we got. So it's also right here. If we draw a tic-tac-toe line across this frame in our minds, this cup crosses the confluence of the right bottom third, not the top left third. This is also a very significant item in the shot, even though it's not the subject, not the main subject or the intended subject. It does also cross the opposing lead lines as this one, right? Now let's see if she accomplished that same thing in hers. First of all, she did, right? She divides the frame right here, right down the center of the bottle, 1/3, 2/3, all right? At the bottom right, we don't necessarily have an object from which to place the focus, but we at least have an item that's clearly the focus of the originating subject matter right here. In focus, predominant, the biggest thing in the shot. And then at the top left, we have something very light. It doesn't necessarily, like its main subject matter, it doesn't necessarily have an extreme, solid, absolute focus. It's just a thing in the front right of the frame, whereas that same relationship is here, because you can't really tell what that is, but it is at the bottom left, top left of the frame, right? And it's in a kitchen, obviously. And another cool thing I'm sure that all of you guys landed on was that it's on this crusty, rusty cabin-style table, kind of like in a cabin, probably, right? I mean, who got the impression it was in a cabin or something? Kind of, it's obviously well used. Somebody's missed their potatoes plenty of times and hacked at this thing. Where is it?
It's at a Peak House, the bread house. I don't know if
Oh, okay.
it's behind the stadium.
That was literally my first thought was that it was at a frat.
So
Yeah.
yeah, well, there's no telling what the knives have done in the place. It's very kind of film noir, right? Comments?
And both of them, the background stuff's less out of focus, so you start with the big object, look around, and go back to the original object. That's what I did.
What kind of camera did you shoot this with now?
Canon. It's from the library. Canon T2 line, I think.
Is it a Rebel?
Yeah.
So it has removable lenses?
I didn't try to remove it.
I wonder what I can get on this.
Yeah, it does.
It does. Okay.
T2 has to.
So, do you recall what settings that you had
Yeah, I
inside?
manually did it because the light was pretty bright, so I did lower the ISO. I guess it's not really lower. It is. I think it was like 200, something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah. That's about.
Did you hand hold this shot, or was it on a tripod or
No, I
table?
can hold it.
Yeah.
Hold it.
Yeah, so you probably had a decent ISO. The shutter was probably pretty tight. If it had to have been at least above like an 80th of a second, right?
I zoomed a little bit.
Yeah. Doesn't really have a lot of shake. It's pretty solid focus right here, so you can tell that the shutter was pretty quick, maybe 125th or 250th or better, maybe up to a 400th. And possibly, I'm thinking probably either a higher ISO or you just had a very good, I mean, I think whatever lenses go on the TIs, I imagine they probably, the highest that goes like a 3.5. So, and the other element, of course, is the selective focus that you're talking about. Yeah. So selectively, these two images focus on that subject matter right in the front. Right. All right. Let's go ahead and take a break. Look at, somebody's happy. Oh, look at that. That's cool. Let's take a break. Let's come back at 10 after. Let's go ahead and 15 after. What? I wanted one, yeah. If you didn't have it, just had a couple people just talk about theirs. We'll be right back. Okay. We have a few more images, but I think we also have more to do. So we've pretty well discussed the majority of the stuff that I want us to know. I mean, there's a million things to know, and I could talk forever about it. But what I think we touched on were things like aesthetic, composition, lead lines, rule of thirds, forcing the viewer's eyes around the image to paint, literally paint with light, the story that you want to tell with your frames. We talked about contrasts, right? We talked about histograms, areas that are blown out, where i.e. overexposed, and areas that are dark, i.e. underexposed. We've talked about having a balanced shot, both in light and in composition. Composition is what is pleasing to the eye. Does anybody not know what composition is? I don't want to start saying stuff that nobody. We're all on the same page with that one?
Well, it might be good to hear your definition.
Okay, yeah, no, that's a good idea. So composition, as it relates to photography, is a way of laying out the subject matter within the frame so that it is pleasing to the human eye. We're shooting for other people to look at it. So cut to the chase, what's going to look good for us, right? And it doesn't, this is where photography gets tricky, because it isn't always what looks good. Sometimes it's what looks really, really bad. A successful image also can look really bad, meaning makes somebody just really, really uncomfortable. Who knows the band Korn? Hopefully everybody. Pretty decent band, I would say, in my opinion of the music industry. They hired a very specific photographer to make their cover art. And then they hired him for a very specific reason. He does gothic work. He used to, he made a lot of photos for, what is it, Guar, you know Guar, right? Kind of a little oldie but goodie. Shot the same kind of stuff, and progressively shoots things like for 9 Inch Nails. The director of the movie Fight Club, who's seen Fight Club? His name is David Fincher, and he's aesthetically one of these people who makes you very uncomfortable to watch his stuff, right? For a reason, for a very specific reason. He wants to get a point across, and to get that point across, he makes you uncomfortable. Some people, like Spielberg, in one of his earlier directions with Christian Bale, for instance, was House of the Rising Sun. Has anybody ever seen that movie? Phenomenal movie, right? This is Christian Bale at, in my opinion, his best, right? He was like the perfect role cast for that, and it really set him on a path that today has him playing Batman, right? Everybody knows who Christian Bale is, right? He was also in American Psycho, which is another very good movie, but it's directed by a female who put an incredible spin on the composition of that movie. All very good movies to watch. If you're interested in movies and you're interested in getting into very characteristic composition for the artists making them, that's where you'll want to start. So, from dark to light to happy to wedding and clean and dirty, whatever your particular art and interest in it happens to be, there is a right way to make your shot, and that right way doesn't necessarily mean it's a good shot or a bad shot. What are we saying here? It's not good, it's bad, it's what?
Successful.
Successful or unsuccessful, based on what you want out of that shot, right? I want you guys to really nail that particular notion home. Let's see, so, actually, let's go here. Assignment 3 has already been posted for those of you who are already online and digging around the website as it is. So, resources, for those of us who are learning the website, is the place you're going to go to get the breakdown of what we do in class. Today, we reviewed the assignments, we talk about the original image and the final image and how it plays off of its original or its originating source. What were the challenges? We've discussed some of that. How could it have been done better? We've discussed some of that. Was it indoors or outdoors? We talked about the natural lighting versus the supplied lighting. What time was the photo taken? Very, very key question to start asking ourselves as photographers. Where's the light coming from? That's at the heart of that image, at the heart of that question. What time is it really? Where's the light coming from? That's kind of what you're asking yourself. What angle was it shot from? I want you guys to still remember your influences in here, but really, definitely still want you to strike out on your own as artists. And to kind of close on that first part of the discussion, when you go out and take your next images, I want you to take the image, and then I want you to walk away about 5 steps, and then I want you to turn around, and I want you to look at it from a different angle. Walk over here. If your image is of this pen and this paper, I want you to look around that image, right? And, geez, what else can I put off this table? If I told just this basic shot right here, we've got the light coming down, which kind of makes it a neat little silhouette, right? It isolates the eyes to the table itself. If I give each of you a camera in here, each one of you is going to get a different image of this basic shot right here. Some of you will overlook Brandon's shoulder and like, that's what he's looking at. So his head is going to encompass 1/3 of the shot, and the other 2/3 are going to be what's in front of him. Some of you are going to go from the worm's eye view and come up from his cell phone into his face as he looks down or as he looks bored at the instructor, or whatever he does. They're going to capture emotion because it's his face, and you want the emotion out of it. Some of you don't care about emotion, and you're just going to shoot straight down on it and include his hands over, his fingers overlapping or something like that, right? And I think that some of you will have that intrinsically within you, and some of you will need that trained about you. But however you get to that point, we're gonna nail that one in over and over. I want you guys to start looking at one subject in a million different ways. And we're going to talk about what the angles are called. When you actually take a shot, and over the course of the entire semester, you'll be able to look back at all your shots and say 80% of mine were close-ups. 80% of mine were human interest or feature style shots, or they were nature shots, or they were commercial shots, or they were architecture shots. They were all wide. They were all close. They were all intimate. They were all macro, whatever, right? But you'll be able to start seeing the pattern. Even though you might not know what you like to shoot right now, you can just look over the body of your work and say like, that's where I need to focus. And we'll start defining our niche, which is what it's all about. It's so hard to get to that place where we know what to shoot. But once we're there, then we can really start cutting away all the fat, making ourselves better artists. All right, I really meant to hand out cameras today, but I found out that there was a big hurdle in my plan, a hurdle over which I'm probably not going to jump today. And unfortunately, it relates directly to your assignment. So, I need everybody to sign out cameras. Today is too late, I think, but I think from 10 to 12 is the sign out time. There's a grad student named Burke, or Burke. He's Turkish, cool guy. He's in charge of the cameras. Everybody knows where to sign a camera out, right? Who doesn't? Okay, and Tristan, can you guys help them with this? Tell them where to go? Okay. It's right back along this wall. I can't remember the room number. And it's kind of a nondescript door too, so like just ask one of the students in the room. Okay. Which one? The one
I
next
think
to
the
you?
room is 113 and the door is next to it.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, well, if that sounds right to the rest of you, then that's where to go. If you have problems, email me, I'll get to you as quick as I can. The point was to get you to take a raw image, all right? That shoots raw, right?
Yeah, it's been.
Can I see it? All right. All right, so the important part about a camera that you're going to be interested in is this dial right here. It's going to have an M on it. An M, it stands for anything but auto. It stands for 100% your fault if it goes wrong, right? That's the area we need to be. That stands for manual, and that's where we're going to be shooting. We always want to set our cameras to manual. And oh, you can set it all right here. Nice. Set the ISO, white balance for flames. You've got a white balance for all kinds of stuff on it. Cool. The ISO. You're gonna want a camera that does this. Gives you all of those settings on mobile. And that's what we're going to talk about right now, the ISO and the aperture and all that stuff. And that's what we're going to do. Thank you very much. Time, sir. Also, don't touch the front of your cameras. Don't touch the lens. I don't know how many people that I've talked to, they're like, I think there's something wrong with the sensor. The camera needs to be cleaned again. And I'm like, well, did you clean the lens? Don't touch the front of your lens, even if you're shooting with your camera phone right now and your stuff's coming out all funky and fuzzy and you don't really know what the problem is, it's just wipe it off. You would think that would be common sense, but it's a tool. We're not used to looking at it like a tool, but it is indeed a tool. It's a paintbrush to a painter. It's a guitar to a guitarist, right? It's a camera to a photographer. All right. Everybody that is looking at the website right now can go to resources, and almost everything that I do in this class is going to be downloadable. I have made a PowerPoint. Actually, I stole like 90% of a PowerPoint that was already online, and I made 10% of it my own. And you can download that right here. You can just click literally right there, and it will download the PowerPoint. And it's the PowerPoint that we are going to be doing right now. We'll talk about the nuts and bolts for a little bit, and then I'll give you guys your final assignment. And hopefully this goes on the right screen, and it did not. Maybe now, maybe not. Shabam! There we go. All right. Camera functions. this is what it's all about. Put your note-taking skills to work. If you're on a laptop, you can tick away, I won't get upset. If you're a notebook kind of guy, scribble away. This is gonna be the most important thing we've done all semester, all 3 days of it. Could. Listening to it is gonna be important as well. So we're gonna talk about shooting modes, aperture, ISO, shutter speed, and the meter. The most important 3 things are what? Does anybody remember of these 5?
Aperture, ISO,
Aperture, ISO, and
shutter speed.
shutter speed. These guys right here. The most important settings in your camera. Everything else is predicated, everything else in photography is predicated on these 3. All right. Obviously, you're going to need to have it in focus, and you're going to need to find out what mode you're shooting in, so I included those as well. Okay? Those are the other important items. Okay, moving right along. The unit of measurement in photography is called a stop. Stop, whenever anybody says, you're gonna come up 3 stops, you're gonna go down 3 stops, you're gonna stop down, or you can stop up, right? Using the word stop as an intransitive verb is not an unheard of accomplishment in the world of photography. Using it as a noun and a verb in the same sentence is also going to be something we're going to do in here. Right? A stop can be applied to shutter, aperture, or ISO. Any of those. Most cameras that we're going to be, all of the cameras that we have in the lab, in the gear locker, and all of the cameras like the Pentax here, and probably all of the other stuff we have, do full stops as well as third stops. And we're going to be talking about the math of that in a minute. If you're like, what are you talking about? Even if you're there, we'll talk about it. Aperture. This is an important definition. An aperture is the lens's opening. It's the iris. In fact, in video, it's called iris. It's not called aperture. And it allows a certain amount of light to hit the sensor. A certain amount of light. Not time, not sensitivity, but amount of light. That's what aperture can be applied to. A for aperture, A for amount. Good way to remember it. I didn't really think of that before, but that's a good way to remember it. Okay. It's not how fast something happens or anything like that. Okay, so the stops are, as you can see on the board there, the lowest one that we'll ever deal with in this class is a 2.8. They have, I think, developed a camera, I think Leica goes down to like 0.8 or something, which is an astronomically large number in as far as apertures go. 2.8, what's that?
The camera, not the lens?
The lens, yeah.
Okay.
Well, Leica makes their own lenses. There's also a Zeiss lens that you can put on Canons and things like that. But I think 0.8 is the absolute lowest. And it's, you really, like, based on the other mechanics of the camera, like the ISO being increased so much, we probably, a 0.8 is pretty ridiculous. It's also hugely expensive. So really, when it comes down to it, when you talk to somebody and they've got like a 0.8 camera, it's just bragging rights. That's all it is. I spent a buttload of money on this lens. That's what that means. But 2.8 is perfectly good for anything that we're going to be doing in this class. All right. So 2.8, f4, f8, I'm sorry, f5.6, f8. Why does it do that? Why is it funky like this? 11, 16, 22, and 32. 32 you'll never have to worry about either. Ooh, go back. The highest I don't even think my camera goes to a 32. It's very specialized. 22 is about the highest you'll ever see one. This is what it looks like. When you're looking inside a camera itself, this is actually what the iris does as it opens. These little guys, these teeth-looking things that swirl this way are called blades, and they simply, based on a servo on the outer edge of the lens itself, yet still encompassed within the lens, they just turn and kind of withdraw within themselves. And the only thing you really have to know about this is the lower the number, the bigger the iris. Why? Who knows? I talked about this a little bit. In fact, my drawing is still here.
Sorry, one more time?
Why is the larger number responsible for a smaller opening?
Oh, because it's the distance between the amount of, like, the opening and the edge of camera.
Precisely. It measures not the opening, but the distance that the blade is exposed within the lens. Does everybody understand that? The larger the number is actually measuring the distance between the outer edge of the viewable area of the lens and the inner area of the iris. This would be the outer layer of the iris as well, but it mitigates that a little bit. All right? This isn't confusing now, but it's going to get a little bit confusing whenever we say, yeah, but it's the same for f-stops, and it's the same for this other thing as well. When we talk about 2/50th of a second, for how fast a shutter is open, is that faster or slower than a 500th of a second? Everybody's like, wait a minute, we just got this one thing down, don't throw that at me. We'll get better at it. Full stops. If you're looking at the numbers, the numbers are either going to halve or double. And by halve, I mean H-A-L-V-E as the verb to half something, or to double it. All right? So if we're looking at these numbers, the 2/8 goes to f4. That's a full stop. All right? So the number itself, only in terms of distance, does it actually double. Because 2 times 2.8 is not 4, clearly, right? But we're not talking about multiplying the number by 2. We're talking about halving the amount of light that comes in. Right? When you step up, right, when you go up in stops, you're going to cut that light in half each time. So there's half as much light at an f4 than there is at an f2.8. There's half as much light at an f5.6 than there is at an f4, et cetera, all the way up to your highest aperture. Does everybody understand that? When explained that way, some people, including myself, are very confused. Is anybody confused? Please say so. Okay. Well, we're going to move forward then. F8. Is that half or double the amount of light? Is an F11. Twice as much light, or it's half as much light?
Twice as much.
It is, because F11, even though the number is larger, that means the light is lower, right? Can't get nothing past you guys. Film. Well, it shouldn't be spelled like that. It shouldn't be written like that. ISO is also called film speed. I want everybody to write that down, because sometimes when I say film speed, what I mean is ISO, and when I say ISO, sometimes I mean film speed. The exact same thing. It's the number that indicates the film's sensitivity. And obviously we're looking at whoever made this original slide, from whom I'm so happy I stole it, indicates film's sensitivity. Nobody in here, except for a couple of you that have very specific interests, are going to be dealing with film photography, correct? I mean, if you are, I'm not going to say no, I'd say you really shouldn't. But that's for this class. I'm not saying don't get involved with film. I'm saying for this class, you need to do a hell of a lot more work to do the same thing that everybody else is going to be doing in here. You got to like develop it, turn it into a digital negative, and then put it online. Whereas the rest of us take it from the camera, put it in the computer, tick it, and it's done. Right? Some cameras automatically set the ISO when you turn it on. I don't want anybody in here to do that. I want to immediately get rid of the idea of setting our camera at auto for anything, for ISO, for aperture, even if it's priority. You guys know what aperture priority is? Anybody heard that concept? We'll talk about that once we understand this, then we'll go deeper. All right, the film's sensitivity to light. This is kind of a difficult concept to absorb, because it's not a mechanical setting, all right? It doesn't make something happen faster. It doesn't open the iris any wider. It literally tells the sensor how sensitive to be. That's what the ISO's job is. And ISO, by the way, stands for International Standards of Operation. It doesn't have anything whatsoever to do with cameras. I don't know why they named it this. Just call it film speed if you're more comfortable with that. So, who understands ISO completely right now? Really? A couple of you? I did better than I thought I did. All right, I was hoping for at least the entire room to not understand. So the sensitivity to light, see if I can, I don't really have a way to draw this or anything. Let's start up the basics here. We've got 80, 100, 200, 400, 800, and 1600. Today, 80 isn't even used, and 1600 is like halfway to where most cameras go these days. My camera goes to 2000, 4000, 5000, and what was the last one? 6400. The latest stuff out has something like 32,000. It's basically shooting in near pitch black. And when all of your other camera settings, we set that aside for conversational purposes, the higher the number is the more sensitive, all right? So you need to shoot higher aperture, higher ISO in less light. That's where the opposing idea comes in. The less light you have, the greater the number of your ISO needs to be. Everybody have that concept in their brains now? That's all you really need to know. The lower the light, higher the number. The greater the light, obviously the less that number needs to be. If you're shooting indoors, these are the full stops for ISO. 100 multiplies into 2 to 200, 2 to 400, 4 to 800. This one actually does double in the number because it's a process that was designed, not the natural phenomenon of light can be stepped up and down, and that number isn't going to be exact. But the process of making film to be more sensitive or making a sensor be more sensitive is an exact process that we built right into the camera when we started inventing the silicon chips. All right? So that one is exact. Full stops are very easy. Some cameras that we have are going to be, what did mine have? It had like 200, 250, 320, 400, 500, 650, 800, and like et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Like there's all kinds of in there, but these are the full stops. I keep using this word full stop, and it's for a very important reason. Because if you go up a stop in aperture, you need to go down a stop in ISO, or down a stop in your shutter speed, or something like that. It needs to happen to keep that balance. We'll talk about that a little bit more in a second, but this is important. When you're outside with this massive, bright, gorgeous sun in the sky and very few clouds, you've got no need to go any higher than a 100 ISO. If you start with a 100 and then you just plug away at your settings otherwise, you should be able to get a nice, clean, crisp image, depending on what you're shooting at, right? So you can shoot in portrait mode, works really well. This is something that most brides hope for their wedding day. Lots of sun, right? Cool thing about ISO is the higher the number, the more grain you get in that shot. The lower number, the cleaner that shot is. We call it noise nowadays because it's a digital, sort of like a static feel to your images, if that's a high number. 2 to 400 ISO is going to be reserved for sporting events, fast shutter speeds like the Indy 500. You want to catch the look of the guy bouncing around inside this car as it just barrels down the Indiana Motor Speedway or whatever it is, right? You want to catch the the wheels themselves. You don't want to catch a blur, you want to like freeze those guys solid. You shoot it like a 500th of a second, or 5,000th of a second, and just a 400 ISO, yep.
So the ISO affects the focus?
It affects it's called film speed. It wouldn't necessarily play, the two other factors play a greater role in focus. Yeah, that's a good question. There's also another rule that applies to the 400 ISO, and that's called the Sunny 16 rule. And just for our basic purposes today, you don't have to write it down. We will go over it plenty, I promise. It's hard to just go outside and be like, oh, this is a perfect shot for an f5.6 at a 400 ISO, whatever, 500th of a second. It's very difficult to just step outside and do that. The old school photographers that didn't have that little LCD panel in the back of their screens definitely had to worry about that. But today we can snap, snap, snap. We don't like this one, we can delete it, step up our aperture, step down our ISO, and boom, we're ready to shoot for a very accomplished and fully exposed image, right? Very easy to do because it's immediate. You click the thing, you got the thing, you're done with your thing, you can go home, right? In any case, Sunny 16 rule is one of those rules where if it's very sunny outside, you can set your aperture, you can set an f16 or you can set, what is it, a 400th of a second at ISO 400 at f16. And that's the Sunny 16 rule, right? You'll have all of those 4 times 4 equals 16, and that's kind of like just the math behind it or whatever. All right. If you're shooting low light, indoor, without a flash, you're just going to go higher than ISO 400. That's all you really need to know for that one. All right, so the third thing is shutter speed, the third most important element to setting your camera in manual mode. The amount of time that the shutter is open is considered a shutter speed. Now, the term shutter started in the old world of photography where there was actually, in the camera that I have, and in certainly the old ones, and this one over here even, it has a lens. The light comes in the lens, bounces off a mirror, bounces around through a pentaprism, and actually you're looking through the viewfinder at exactly precisely what the lens is looking through. It's a single lens reflex, or SLR. DSLR stands for digital single lens reflex. Now, the shutter in that case is that mirror. The other side of that is the sensor. So then when that flips up, it flips up for 250th of a second, 500th of a second, 1,000th of a second. That's going to be determined by your shutter speed, which is this item here. However, as things have gone, as technology has grown, we've moved away from the mirrored cameras, and now we just have basically an exposed sensor in the inside of this camera right here, and the inside of that one. There's no shutter that's going up and down at a rate so fast we can't hear it. It really is, it's just a sensor that's there. Essentially, it would be, in the old days of film, it would be like film that's just scrolling by the open lens, burning an image into it at a certain rate. But we still call it shutter. It's simply the amount of time the sensor is exposed to light. That's all you need to know about that. Even though there's no mechanical mirror flipping up and down in many of the cameras these days. So 1/3 increments of the shutter are as follows. 15th, half as much time it's open is 1/30th, and that's that juxtaposed sort of, the number gets higher, right? The number 15 and 30, obviously. 30th of a second, though, is the shutter's open half as much time as a 15th of a second. And that is half as much time as 60th of a second, which is half as much time as 125th, half as much time as 250th, a 500th of a 1,000th, a 2,000th, a 4,000th, an 8,000th, et cetera, right? I think our cameras might go up to 8,000th of a second. I mean, you can use an 8,000th of a second to freeze a bullet in flight. So if there's something that goes faster than that you're really interested in shooting, you probably need to find a different class. I don't know. It's a pretty specialized form of photography, right? This is what it looks like. If this is a clock, all right, this little arrow here goes around, that's 1/15 of a second. So that's a very long time for a shutter to be open. A 1/15 of a second doesn't seem like a lot. As I'm standing here talking to you, a 1/15 of a second is passing 4 times every second. But in terms of photography, it really is a long time. A 1/15 of a second, you can't hand hold a shot at 1/15 of a second. You can't do it. I mean, you can try really hard and you can hold your breath and you can really try, but it's just not going to happen. You're going to have some camera shake in there. There are lots of things that you can do to change that, however. If you want to shoot, if your camera is telling you that a 1/15 of a second is necessary, then you have a starting point. Then you can say, oh, okay, well, let's talk about this. Let's start at a 1/15 of a second, and I think I can shoot it at a 2/50th of a second. So how many stops is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, right? These are full stops, 15th, 30th, 60th, 120th, 250th. If I think I want to go here, and I step up in my shutter speed, I have to do what to my aperture? I have to step down. That's the math. There's a lot of like numbers and funky stuff involved in thinking about it, but that is basically what we're talking about. If I come up in time, I have to let in 4 stops of light. So I have to open up that aperture a little bit more. So let's say I'm shooting at an f8 at 1/15. If I come up, how many stops down? Where does that put me at aperture?
4 stops up.
It would be 4 stops from what did I say? F11? How many stops? I mean, where does that put me?
From 11?
11 goes to,
4?
well, first it goes to 8, and then
5.6.
5, 6, and then 4, and then 2, 8. So if I go up to a 250th, I have to stop down to a 2.8. Does everybody understand that concept? So it's a little bit about knowing this, but it's mostly about memorizing the stops. You just need to know the stops in your head. All right? That's one of the reasons that I give you this PowerPoint, is so that you can memorize those stops. And the stops are going to be right here. Right after the aperture introduction, those are your stops, the ones in red. Okay? Everything between those are thirds of stops. So you probably have these on your camera. A 3.2 and 3.5. 3.5 is very common. 3.2 is less common. 4 is required if you're going to be shooting raw. 5, 6, 3, 4, 5, 9, 10, 7, 1, etc., etc. Those are all thirds of stops. All right. Any concepts that are just too hard to absorb for anybody? Anybody want me to re-explain any of this stuff? This is the nuts and bolts, folks. This is what gets it learned, gets it done. Okay, question. If 5/100th of a second is twice as fast as a 2/50th, is that double or half the amount of light? How many people say double?
500 is double?
Yeah,
No.
confused on which one.
Yeah, which one?
Yeah, so we're asking about the 500th.
Okay, never mind.
As it relates to 2/50th, is 500 half or double?
It's half.
It is. 500 is open for less time, and therefore lets in less light. All right? It's a little bit tricky, but it's not insurmountable, that concept. All right. All right. Metering. And do we have time for this? Yeah, we got time for this. Metering it's all about focus, okay? Whenever I talk about metering in this class, and eventually whenever you talk about metering in this class, I'm going to say, how did you meter that shot? What am I talking about?
If it's overexposed or underexposed.
Yeah, you're actually using a meter on your camera. Like most cameras these days have a meter built right into it. On this one, it is right here. This little divot. It's got a little eyeball looking thing that pokes out. And that's what it is. It's a little meter. My dad, when I was learning how to set my f-stop based on a light meter, it was a whole separate component, and it's like half a pound, this thing. And you go up, right up to your subject, and like, I'm gonna shoot the corner of this, I'm gonna put this giant white golf ball under the light, and inside that light there's a couple of photo sensors, or photo cells rather, and they would digest the light, they would tell me the temperature of the light in Kelvin. So if it's the sun, it's like 5,600 Kelvin. If it's a what's the word? Fluorescent light, it's probably like 2,800 Kelvin, something like that. And I would just set well, back in that day, I would be like, okay, I can't use that entire camera because it's got, ISO 200 in it. I've got to take this camera, which has ISO 400 in it, and then I shoot my image based on the light requirements, right? But nowadays we have this, and it doesn't even, we have to do anything. We just half down on the trigger a little bit, and it gives us everything we need to know. As we're looking right through the viewfinder, we see this. Wait, not our cat. We see this. Looking right through the sensor. We didn't even have to do anything. We didn't have to move our face away from the camera. We get to see all of this stuff. And based on your camera, it's going to look a little bit different. But this is basically it. It's got your shutter speed. It's got your aperture, indicated by the F. It's got the meter exposure, and we'll talk about the EV stops, the exposure value. We'll leave that for a second. It's got the ISO. The ISO, unfortunately, this guy has it set to auto. It should say at 200 or 400 or whatever right here. And this, how many shots that you've got. 88.8 is a really weird, 88,000. We've got like a 32 gig card in there or something. And this is the important part right here. This is how your shot is going to be, what your camera is looking at when it does meter. You can set your camera to do a center weighted meter, meaning like boom, you got a little red dot right in the middle of your camera. No matter where you go with your camera, you can push your shutter halfway down, and I'll show you how to do this when we get our cameras. And it'll give you a light reading and a distance reading, and it'll measure all kinds of stuff. And it'll do it within a fraction of a second. It'll go dee-dee, and it'll let you know that you set your camera here. And this will tell you, it's got a little bar over here. It's like, you're going a little overexposed on that, so you can notch it down on your aperture on one of your dials. You can dial it down in aperture, dial it up in ISO, however you get to that on your camera. But these are all the basic functions. Now, this is the actual icon that you're going to have in your camera itself. It's going to be something like this. Mine has a dot system, so it's either a dot in the center, a dot surrounded by a circle, or a dot within a square. And that means center weighted, spot metering, or matrix metering. And those are the three different kinds of metering. It'll tell you focus and all kinds of other stuff. Most 35mm cameras have exposure meters built into them. Today, I expect that all of them do in this class. You don't need to really know what's in the inside of it. Second type of meter is incident meter. Don't worry about that. This is probably good to know. They average out the light. They're never going to be exact for what you want. The good thing about our technological age is that we can actually, on our cameras, if we want this straight on shot, but we want it to be focused over here, you can do two things. You can set your camera to meter focus somewhere over here and just keep your shot the way it is, mostly for portraiture or setup shots. Or you can move the actual camera angle, literally point it over here, click halfway down on your shutter, which not only takes a reading, but it also locks in the focus. And then you can move the shot back to where you want. That's the quickest and most oft used, the latter of the two of those options. But that still doesn't mean we get out of learning it, okay? I want everybody to learn the right way, and then once you know how to do it, then we can break the rules, okay? All right. Center weighted, it averages the exposure of the entire frame, but it gives you more of that weighted average toward the middle, okay? About 18 degrees out, and that's pretty much everybody. That's Pentax, that's Sony, that's Canon, that's Nikon. The matrix metering, it evaluates the entire picture and takes an average from multiple zones, and that, again, is wherever you want it to go. You can take your little dial and move it left, right, up, down, whatever. You can see a little square move around the inside. The more expensive cameras have more points. I think mine has like 94, but the average is somewhere around 50. And spot metering is, you have no choice about it. It's right at the center, 3 degrees from the center, ignoring the rest of the frame. All right? So spot is the most focused, center weighted is the middle of between the two focuses, and evaluative or matrix focusing metering is, going to get your specific area. All right, the lights. I want to talk for the next 10 minutes about the next one. So does anybody have any questions about that? Those are pretty heavy concepts, okay? So I don't expect everybody to leave here like, I'm a pro, let's go do this. Invest all your money in your wedding business and sell the farm. I want you guys to take some time and digest it. It is, it's a lot to know. So don't worry about knowing all of it right now. But your assignment does curtail a bit of that. Let me... So your assignment is up already. All right, so taking from what we learned about camera functioning and applying it to assignment 4 is what we're doing. All right, we're going to be learning more and more about the functionality of our cameras, but using our basic knowledge, just the stuff that I've thrown at you today, we're going to start using our camera as a tool. It needs to be seen as a tool, not, oh, it's so cute, it's blue. Right? Nothing against blue. Oh no, I'm unsecured. Can someone please help me with, I don't know what to do now that I'm unsecured. But using that basic knowledge, we're going to be plastering that on the backdrop of nonfiction photography. Everything we do is going to be nonfiction in here. We don't need to worry so much about knowing everything about the camera. This is a progressively moving class. It's just going to build on what we know from one week and stacking that on the previous knowledge for the next week. That is precisely how people learn photography, in case you were wondering. Those of you who are like, how do I learn photography? That's how you do it. Nobody dives in to the hard stuff and just knows what they're doing. Even Ansel Adams, like there's a learning curve, and everybody's curve is going to be different. Hopefully, the way I've been teaching this class for the last 7 years, I've learned a thing or two about how to get people into being better photographers by the end of a 4-month, system of training. Sometimes it's a better curve than others. And anyway, so every week we have 2 assignments. For those of you who weren't here, technically each assignment has 2 parts, okay? It has a photo assignment and it has a writing assignment. It just accompanies the photo. So it's just half of it is writing and half of it is the actual art that we create. I want you to shoot for exposure. I want you to capture not one, but a series of photos, minimum of 3, all right? I want you to shoot an underexposed, let me just read it, I'll just read it. I'm trying to read and speak ahead of myself. The assignment is to capture a series of images of a subject of your choice. I don't care what the subject is. You guys, I had you guys look at some stuff you're interested in to determine your subject matter, so I think you guys have a pretty good handle on what you like to see and what you like to shoot. With correct, balanced exposure, correct? When I'm using it here, it means balanced, okay? I'm not trying to tell you that, you know, some people like dark photography, like my darkies, like with the humdrum scenes, beautiful, love it. I'm not saying that's incorrect, but you guys understand, I'm applying it to our argument here for exposure. Balanced exposure is the important part here. They need to be captured with metadata. If you don't have one of these guys here, and you absolutely, just for some strange alien life form steals your ability to take one out of the checkout locker over here, then you won't be able to collect your metadata. But I want your metadata. What is metadata?
All the information about the photo.
Yeah, the very second that your frame is captured in the sensor, your camera also jots down things like exposure, how the ISO was set, the aperture was set, the shutter speed. All right? I want that. I want to know. Inquiring minds often do. So that the original picture qualities or exposure settings is what that's actually called. Exposure settings are what is in camera at the time of the shot. They're saved, and we will discuss those in next class. So please do everything you can to get the metadata with your shot, okay? Upload at least 3. You can do as many as like 6, but remember it's a blog, right? We don't want to have the entire, 15 pages of it dedicated to just one set of shots, all right? 3 to 6 images, let's limit it to that. I want one that's underexposed, one that's overexposed. Overexposed is also called blown out. The areas where we couldn't see any of the blue in the sky, that's called a blown out area of the image, okay? Where it's overexposed, right? And I don't need this to be absolute. I just want your best shot, all right? Just give me your best shot. I'm not gonna give you an F if like you get it, almost or whatever. The writing assignment, I will require you to write about the process that you went through to capture that image. Write about how you went about getting an overexposed image, an underexposed image, and then a correctly exposed image. You can, I want you to use your camera's meter, so write down what your meter tells you, and then write and tell me that it was wrong, or tell me that it was right, or tell me whatever you want to tell me about it, but write down those settings, what your camera's telling you it is, your meter. All right? You know how to half down on your trigger and get the settings? Can you do that for me real quick? Does it give you a little like let you know that it's done? I want everybody to listen.
Or maybe, I might have turned that off actually.
Yeah. Does yours?
Yeah. Should we take ones off or?
Yeah, it's gonna need to focus on something. All right. Let's grab it. Yep, that little diddy.
Yeah.
That happens when you haven't pushed all the way down on the shutter. Push halfway down on the shutter and then get up. You're gonna have to hit like an object or something that we can focus on. Yeah. Yeah. So, and she's got a reading of, I'm sorry, just snapped that for her. But she's got a reading of a 1/64th of a 640th of a second at an f/5.6 ISO 6400, right? And that isn't what it automatically gives you, was it? Let me see what it gives you. Okay, it wants to flash, so let's turn the flash off. I don't, as far as auto flash goes, try to stay away from your auto flash. If you don't mind, can you turn that off? Is that okay? Something. Run up and take control. Got the beep. Got the red eye reduction good. I got histogram on here. In any case, let's try something that's, okay, gave me a reading of a 50th of a second at ISO 3200 at an aperture of 4.5. So 50th of a second. You guys think I'm gonna be able to take a still shot at a 50th of a second? Handheld? No, I'm gonna need that. So what I wanna do is write that down. My camera just told me, I pressed halfway down on the shutter trip at the light, and it told me that a 50th of a second, ISO of 3200, and an aperture of, what did I say? 4.5? Something like that. So if I need to, I obviously need to step up to at least 100th of a second. All right, so I need to step up this.
Does it, when you do that, does it tell you what your camera's currently set at or what it should be set at?
Well, it's telling you what it should be. Yeah. So right now, 50th at an F5, ISO 400, and I'm seeing that right in the viewfinder. Now hers, it actually gives you the option once you take your finger off, and that's going to make me a liar. Well, a second ago, it showed me on the panel, but you can look right in the viewfinder, and it'll tell you that.
So then you just go and change it. How is that different than just having it on auto? Like if it tells you what you should set it at, this is just letting it set it at
That's a good question. It will recommend something. It will shoot at whatever it's currently set at. It will. But it's going to tell you something at the bottom. And normally, and I haven't seen this one before, but most of them will show you a little EV meter at the bottom that says, and I wish I had my camera in here to film capture it, but there will be a series of bars right here. 0 means balanced. And if it's here, that means it's underexposed. If it's here, that means it's overexposed.
Okay.
That is a meter reading. That's a true to form meter reading that your camera is going to be giving you real time, whatever you're pointing at. And if you move it over here, it'll change.
Okay.
And that's how you know, by the way. When you change subjects, when you change lighting conditions.
Okay.
If that changes, that's what, and that's the recommended stuff. Do we have any questions about that? I think that's probably, I've spoken to like cute coat hangers, right? Does anybody have anything to add? All right, well, thanks very much. You guys have a good weekend. Try to get me your shot before Sunday if possible. And thank you very much.